Chuck,
Right.
Michael, are we ready for YouTube?
Good to go.
All right, over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Board Clerk, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, April 6th, 2020 meeting of the Housing Authority Board of Directors. Clerk Moss, roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Director. The Housing Authority of April 6, 2021 is now meeting in regular session. Director Roper.
Here.
Director Savara.
Here.
Director Willie.
Here.
Director Fye.
Here.
Director Rogers.
Here.
Director Treese.
Here.
Director Harrington.
Here. Thank you, everyone, to our viewing audience. Sorry we started a little bit late. The Board of Commissioners had an executive session that went a little long, delaying our start time today. So the first item on the agenda for the Housing Authority Board of Directors is oral communication. Mr. Moss, do we have anyone signed up?
Madam Director, we do not have anyone signed up.
Great, thank you. Next on the Housing Authority Board of Directors consent agenda, we have 5 different items. Approval of the minutes for our March 2nd, 2021 meeting. An item to authorize the executive director to form entities, support applications for funding and execute required project documents for the Valfrey at Avenida 26, formerly known as the Forest Grove Family Housing Project. Another item to accept the fiscal year 2019-2020 Housing Authority Annual Financial Report, to approve the public housing admissions and continued occupancy policy, which I'll add is a 310-page detailed document. Thank you, staff, for all that diligence. And then lastly, to approve the Housing Choice Voucher Program Administration Plan, another very detailed, complex document of 429 pages. I am appreciative of their work. So that's the consent agenda with 5 items. What are the wishes of the Board of Directors? Wouldn't?
Motion to move.
Thank you, Director Roper. Is there a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Director Savara. We have a motion and a second to approve today's consent agenda. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next, we have a public hearing to conduct a public hearing for the annual Public Housing Agency plan for fiscal year 2021. Do we have a staff report first?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Good morning, Housing Authority Board of Directors. My name is Komi Calavo, Housing Authority Executive Director. We are before you requesting a public hearing for our annual Public Housing Agency plan. It is a voluminous document, and believe it or not, we have split it among ourselves and it's all covered. And before I go any further, I want to acknowledge the work of Josh Kreitz, Assistant Director, Will Smith, Asset Manager, Liz Morris, Rental Assistance Manager, and Melissa Daly, our Senior Program Coordinator. So the PHA plan is a mandatory, comprehensive, hard required report. It is actually a 5-year plan and with annual updates. We are in year 2 of a 5-year cycle. So annual submissions to HUD are reflective of changes that we make to improve our operations. HUD also requires a 45-day notice of the public hearing, which started on February 19th and was posted in local newspapers and online. And we also engage our residents, which is also mandatory and required. We have a resident advisory board. So they met on March 3rd, and we also took their input. The major elements of the plan are HUD forms. Changes to our program of the Housing Choice, also known as Section 8, changes for the admissions and continued occupancy plan, the 300-page report that the chair referenced, were also done, and we prepared a memo outlining those changes. So the major sections are the housing need and analysis of impediments. This is done to align with the county's consolidated plan. The consolidated plan is prepared by the Office of Community Development. So it was done a year ago, and so that section is in alignment. We also made some changes to the housing choice voucher or Section 8 administrative plan, and also the admissions and continued occupancy plan. So we make sure the list includes also the repositioning that we are doing of public housing, which is the Section 18 that came to your board in 2019, I recall. We also are involved with moving to work and project-based vouchers. We have committed 200 vouchers to the Metro Affordable Housing Bond, and lists of all our new activities, which I will not go on, including changes to our flat rates. So with that, we can answer some questions you may have.
Commissioners, are there any questions? I appreciated the memo that you included with this item in the packet. All right, well, seeing no further questions then, I'll open a public hearing on the annual Public Housing Agency PHA plan for fiscal year 2021. Mr. Moss, is there anyone?
No, Director Harrington, no one has signed up to testify on this plan.
All right, well, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to execute the required PHA certifications and to direct and authorize the executive director to submit the annual PHA plan to Housing and Urban Development?
Motion to move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you, directors. The next item on the agenda is oral communication. This is our 5-minute opportunity. Mr. Moss, is there anyone signed up?
We do not have anyone signed up, Madam Director.
Okay. Board of Director announcements. Directors, is there anything you'd like to contribute today?
I'd love to just provide a brief update to the board on just the state of rental assistance, if possible. I think it's definitely something I know the board is interested in around the Landlord Compensation Fund that the team has been operating on behalf of OHCS here at the local level, and just so grateful for that partnership. And I know that's probably just a huge lift in trying to make sure that tenants and landlords are supported, and that program is operating as effectively as possible. In May, we will be launching OHCS, that is, we'll be launching a tenant-based landlord portal that will be partnering with Community Action Organization once again for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So it's another tranche of federal funds that will be going out through community action agencies, as well as for the first time using a unified single portal across the entire state. So that unified portal relies on the same sort of back end that Landlord Compensation Fund does, but definitely a big change, a big shift, and we're excited to continue to partner with local organizations here in Washington County to make sure that folks who are most disproportionately impacted by the pandemic have access to those resources and have support to be able to make sure that they're able to stay in housing. And just excellent work as always to the team at the Housing Authority, and excited to continue to make sure that folks are able to stay housed and stay safe during the pandemic, and have the resources they need to really thrive. So more to come, I'm sure, in May, but definitely appreciate the partnership on the LCF program as well as the next phase of rental assistance as we move forward.
Director Savaro, if I might ask you a question. In a meeting with the governor last evening, I noted that through the course of this whole COVID response and the economic difficulties, that government as a safety net government, Washington County, the state, and the federal government have all tried to help ensure that as people have lost their income streams in losing jobs and so forth, that we've quickly put together programs to try and help bridge people over so they don't lose their stable housing. So two things I'm wondering about. As there are these programs for landlords and tenants to work together to cover the back rent and so forth, are you finding and hearing through your professional capacity that most landlords are aware of the program and are taking advantage of, are aware of it and able to enroll in it, and that tenants are finding that their landlords are engaging with them okay, or there's some problems that we need to try and be aware of and maybe address?
Chair Harrington, that's a great question. I would be curious about the staff's experience in sort of delivering the LCF program thus far, but I know, frankly, access for the technology piece of the program has been slightly bumpy, very honest. It's very, it's new software, it's a new process. So making sure that landlords, as they grab their rent rolls and upload that information, that they have the support they need, it's really critical so that we're not sort of further disenfranchising folks that are just trying to make sure that they're made whole, that they can pay their mortgage, they can put food on the table. So I think that element has been a work in progress. The second wave of the LCF program should open up here in the next couple of weeks. And so we're hoping for a smoother rollout of that second wave here shortly, but definitely a work in progress to some extent. And then, on the tenant-based side, I would say one element that we're excited to be able to offer in the next wave is actually, if a landlord chooses not to participate for whatever reason, they choose not to receive a direct payment, there's actually, the federal government is actually allowed for direct to tenant payments. So the landlord says, you know what, I don't want to participate in that. You're still going to owe me that back rent. The agency delivering that rental assistance could turn around and give that funding directly to the tenant, who could then pay their rent on behalf, which just adds more flexibility for landlords who are maybe not so keen on working with an organization or working with the government for some reason or another. So definitely a nice flexibility that the feds offered in, and for a lot of reasons, landlords are not always keen on working with programs like these. So I'm excited to see how that works. There's definitely some questions there, but it's a good flexibility, I think, to offer as a sort of policy solution.
Great, thank you for that reminder. And then the other item that I spoke with the governor last night is, as we've ramped up all kinds of different programs, we've really leaned on the various community action organizations in all the different counties. And we haven't had, well, the original CRF funding had a very short time frame. So they were able to get the dollars out the door using their current staff, as well as a little bit of temporary staffing. Now with the American Rescue Plan, we have a longer time frame to do this work. So rather than some of the community action organizations were bottlenecks and couldn't get the dollars out fast enough, I'm hopeful that they'll be able to bring more employees on board to get this work done. from your vantage point, do you see that as a possibility, or do we need to do something to try and ensure that we don't experience that same situation?
Another great question. I think a lot of this has to do with investing in the organizations that are working on the ground. The community action agencies have done an incredible lift over the last year. I would say also a lot of their subrecipients and their partners in the community action organization is a great example. I think they work with 7 or 8 different culturally specific organizations, community-based organizations across Washington County to add that extra capacity. But every time you add a subrecipient, every time you add a layer of administration, those are real dollars that you have to pay. You have real dollars that you have to ensure that are going to be able to flow to the staff and to the operations. So I think the biggest question that looms for me is how do we make sure that we're not asking the world of organizations and nonprofits without paying them? Without really giving them the flexibility to allocate those dollars as they need. A great example was before in the last administration, the U.S. Treasury did not allow, with the emergency rental assistance, didn't allow for indirect costs, so things like overhead and things that weren't directly allocable to a specific program. And the new administration, the U.S. Treasury, actually changed that policy so that it allows for organizations that need to take indirect costs that are real costs to actually use that grant fund to pay for those things. So I think it's a great question. It's really about investing in the long run in these organizations' success. We're leaning on them more than we've ever done before. So making sure that they have capacity to really build up their systems, make sure they have the financial systems in place, have the HR teams in place. All of those pieces are critical to making sure they're successful. So it's a great question. I just think we need to continue to invest in them and make sure that the programs aren't built in a way that's going to make that bottleneck, sort of like it's creating the bottleneck because of the funding in a sense.
This was the exact conversation that Chair Kafori and I were having with Governor Brown last evening. So the good news is we're all aware of the dependency on the various items that you just outlined. And we're looking forward to having that comprehensive set of information from U.S. Treasury. So thank you very much for allowing me to tap into your expertise on these matters. Are there any other Board of Director announcements or items you'd like to share? Director Roper.
Yes, so since we are talking about community actions, I'd just like to announce that they do have a Kaleidoscope event this Friday. You can check out their website. It's an awesome event. I've participated in it many of times, and this cause does so much for families and provides stability. It reunites families. I mean, it keeps people in a home and it gives them the tools that they need to have in their pockets and stuff. So that way they can just move forward and just feel safe and secure. And during these times, it's like harder than ever. So I invite everybody to come and join the Kaleidoscope event. It's Friday, April 9th at 7 p.m. They also have a live auction going. If you would like to check out some of what they're auctioning, you can check out their website, and you have to register to bid if you want to participate in that.
I'd just like to say thank you, Director Roper, for the call out for Kaleidoscope. Great job.
Great. Is there anything else from anyone on the Housing Authority Board of Directors? All right. Well, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, April 6th?
I move to.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Director Savaro. All those in favor of adjourning today's meeting, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Our Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you. So next, we will reconvene as the Washington County Board of Directors for April 6th, 2021. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Washington County Board of Commissioners also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county services districts is now meeting in regular session this April 6th, 2021. Commissioner Willie.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Fye.
Here.
Vice Chair Treese.
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here. Welcome, everyone. I have a few announcements about the agenda before we move to oral communication. Under the action items, we have an additional item, item C, that will consist of an item from the consent agenda W to approve the purchase of the Econo Lodge. We will have a public hearing and then an action item on that. There is an item on the consent agenda that has been pulled off of the agenda for today. That is item R under the Sheriff's Office. So that leaves us with 26 items under the consent agenda. Also under Land Use and Transportation, item K, the award bid memo was added to the packet. Similarly with item M, another award memo was added to the packet. Oh, lastly, we have an added item, item Z as in zebra, under housing, has been added to grant the waiver and authorize funding to continue operations of a non-congregate and congregate shelters. So those are the changes to today's agenda. The first item on the agenda is oral communications. This is an opportunity for folks to share their thoughts with the Board of Commissioners for up to 2 minutes. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone signed up?
We do, Madam Chair. We have Mr. Dale Feek. Dale, can you hear us?
Yes, Kevin, can you hear me?
We can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. Chair Harrington and Washington County Board of Commissioners. I am Dale Feek, Chair of Washington County Citizen Action Network, known as WCCAN. The Board of Directors of WCCAN is pleased to see the transparency and communications via the recent Board of Commissioners Town Hall program. It is beneficial for the community to see what the commissioners consider as their priorities and focus for the upcoming year, both as a group and also as individual commissioners representing their districts. However, WCCAN is very disappointed that climate change and protecting the dwindling significant natural resources did not show up on any commissioner's priority list for the upcoming year during the recent town hall program. On the Oregon State website, it is noted that climate change poses one of the most significant threats to Oregon's economy, environment, and way of life. The county's significant natural resource assessment staff report clearly stated that there is more work to do and that the board supported this work. Yet there wasn't a single line item mentioned in the town hall overall presentation. Last fall, much of the community testimony about significant natural resource ordinance 869 also included the request for developing an effective county level climate strategy to address both the overall climate change issues and significant natural resources. During the State of the County address later this month, we call upon you as our commissioners to reconsider expanding your priorities and publicizing to residents the fact that addressing climate change is a high priority for Washington County, including protection of the remaining significant natural resource areas. Washington County Citizen Action Network will fully support you on this effort in every way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. I want to assure you that the board does have upcoming conversations about climate change. We've asked for a co-agency staff work group from Washington County and Clean Water Services. And we also have further information coming to us about the work of the two agencies as it relates to the state climate adaptation strategy. So stay tuned, and I'll be letting you know when that topic will be coming before us through work sessions and other meetings. Mr. Moss, do we have anyone else signed up?
We do not for this portion, Madam Chair.
Okay. So next we have today's consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 2 sets of meetings, meeting minutes, March 16th and March 29th, 7 items under Clean Water Services, 8 items under Land Use and Transportation, 2 items under Health and Human Services, and 5 items under Support Services, 1 item under Service District for Lighting, and 1 item under Housing. What are the wishes of the commission with regard to today's consent agenda?
Move for approval as adjusted on the agenda.
Was there a second? I see a second as well. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, commissioners. So today we have a couple of proclamations taking about 10 minutes each. The first one is to proclaim April 5th through April 11th, 2021 as National Public Health Week in Washington County. And certainly our public health team has been doing an incredible job of accelerating their work, expanding it to deal with this latest global pandemic. So I see that we have Tricia Mortel, our Division Director for Public Health. Tricia, welcome.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. Clerk Moss, could you also uplift Jennifer McElravy as our chair for this presentation? I'll do the introduction and she'll do the reading of the proclamation if she's on. Thank you. So I know we're in a really short timeline, so I can talk fast. So next slide, please. During Public Health Week, we uplift 2 priorities. One is to talk about the important work of public health and the important work in our community. As Chair Harrington mentioned, we have spent a lot of time this year talking about COVID, but that is not what public health is just about. We have multiple events this week, all virtual, so we are still uplifting important presentations. Let me point out the 4th bullet item. We are releasing the new Community Health Improvement Plan. This is a very large undertaking with multiple community partners, and we have a forum on Friday where we'll be launching this new Community Health Improvement Plan. We had planned to launch it last year, but really had to pause because of the pandemic. And it gave us a chance to add information about the pandemic and how we need to think about recovery. Next slide. The second thing that we do, next slide, please. The second thing that we do during Public Health Week is to honor those and thank those who have been partners to us in so much important work. Typically, we would request nominations throughout the community and we would have 4 awards. We thought that that would be impossible this year because so many partners have done so much. So we really are just going to be thanking groups of individuals for the important work that they did on COVID. So first, our healthcare partners, thanking them for caring and for those with COVID testing and now vaccine work, which is quite a bit to do. From the community organizations for providing support and sharing information with our residents. Next slide. Thank you to our government partners for also providing support and sharing important information with Washington County residents. And to our businesses and business organizations, we know your sacrifices and thank you for protecting the community. Next slide, please. To our education, childcare providers, youth organizations, and especially families, thank you for your dedication to youth in our community, supporting their health and well-being. And to our COVID response team, thank you for the dedication, long hours, and incredible work. Now, I know I said that we weren't going to be doing any specific partner awards, but that was a little bit of a fib. Next slide, please. Today, we'd like to thank our our Board of Commissioners as our Public Health Partnership Award recipients. Thank you for your support and guidance during this pandemic. You listened to the data, you listened to our recommendations, and you supported us during hard times and hard decisions. I'm grateful to have had a public health career and one of my most challenging public health emergencies under your amazing leadership. When you're back in the office, we will be presenting you with awards. And first is a coin that we will be providing to all who have participated in the COVID work here in Washington County. And something, oh, you won't be able to see it because of the background. Yeah, there you go. So something that's a little more practical. You are our public health heroes. Again, thank you. And we bestow on you 2020 Public Health Partnership Award. Next slide, please. And there's one other group that we couldn't have done this work without, and that's the Washington County Emergency Management Team. We train, we plan, we are hope we're ready for this emergency, but I don't think either one of our organizations had any idea of the magnitude facing us this year. We couldn't have done it without John's support and John's team. Their support and leadership ensured we could do our best work, again, for all the residents of this county. Next slide, please. Public health partnerships make a difference. The pandemic has taken a tremendous toll and resulted in many lives lost, but partnerships have been at the forefront of what we've done to protect the community and to save lives. At the annual, at the 1-year mark of this pandemic, OHA estimated that there would have been 3 times as many lives lost across the state of Oregon without this tremendous work from all of us. That means public health partnerships here in Washington County saved 570 lives last year. Thank you to everyone for this important work and to the staff in public health. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer to read the proclamation.
So Tricia, Jennifer is not online with us, so I will go ahead and read it on her behalf. Proclamation, Board of Commissioners for Washington County, National Public Health Week Proclamation, April 6, 2021. Whereas the week of April 5th through April 11th, 2021 is National Public Health Week with a theme of building bridges to better health. And whereas public health professionals help communities prevent, prepare for, withstand, and recover from the impact of full range of health threats, including disease outbreaks, as well as natural and human-made disasters. And whereas public health supports and advocates for everyone's right to a healthy life and works to advance health equity, whereas there is significant difference in health status among people of color and those living in rural areas. And this variance exists because of the social determinants that negatively impact health, such as poverty, transportation barriers, and lack of economic opportunity. Whereas we recognize that communities of color are strong, resilient, and carry unique knowledge and experience to thrive and survive, and that meaningful engagement and leadership from within these communities is fundamental to addressing health inequities. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has illuminated and exacerbated racial inequities, a growing number of local and state governments and public health leaders have declared racism a public health crisis. And whereas community partnerships are essential to building bridges to better health for all, and together with our community partners, we envision Washington County as a place where all people live long and healthy lives in safe environments. Now, be it resolved that the 6th day of April 2021, the Washington County Board of Commissioners, acting as the Board of Health, does hereby proclaim April 5th through 11th, 2021 as National Public Health Week in Washington County, signed by Chair Catherine Harrington and Recording Secretary.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And let me point out that Jennifer was able to join us for just a minute here. Thank you, Jennifer, for your volunteering on the Public Health Advisory Council and also for your year chairing. We really appreciate your support.
If I might jump in here for just a moment, I've served on the Public Health Advisory Committee for almost 2.5 years now, and it's been an honor to serve with those who are on the board and under Jennifer's leadership as our chair. I'm the work that goes on is amazing, and I appreciate, I do want to add that I did not have a vote, nor did I know that the commission was going to receive that award. So, and you can see by Trisha's face that I'm right about that. But I will be stepping down from that committee. And as you'll see in our committee assignments, Commissioner Fye is going to be taking my role there. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Commissioner Fye to bring forward her experience in public health. And I just want to say thank you to Trisha and to the committee for giving me the opportunity to work with you, to attend the meetings, and to understand the important work that you do. So thank you very much. And I'm proud to move to accept this proclamation.
Before we do that, Jennifer, it's wonderful to have worked through the logistics of the meeting finally, so that you're here before us today. Thank you for chairing the Public Health Advisory Council. Is there anything, I know that you weren't able to read the proclamation today, but is there anything you'd like to share with regard to your work on the Public Health Advisory Council and serving as chair there?
Thank you very much for allowing me to participate today. I just want to thank you guys. Trish has been amazing. This is just an amazing opportunity. You know, she made some great points. This has been kind of a wild ride this past year. I work at Virginia Garcia, and I think we've partnered a lot with public health to try to meet this enormous need in our community. So yeah, this is great. This is a great opportunity. So thank you very much.
Well, pre-pandemic, I'll add that our public health team did a great job of helping us as board members understand their work in addressing these various communicable diseases, tuberculosis, venereal diseases, and others. And then the pandemic hit. So we got to learn even more about epidemiology and the work of the Advisory Council. So it really is an amazing team that we have at Washington County, but also an amazing network of providers and other folks who are really the service delivery experts. So thank you. And as part of the proclamation, as we heard, Commissioner Treese has made the motion to adopt the proclamation as read. Do we have a second to adopt the proclamation? We also have a second. All those in favor of adopting today's proclamation to recognize National Public Health Week, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Are there any last comments from you, Ms. Mortel or from Jennifer McElvray?
No, thank you. And there you can see some of our events on Horizons. So again, maybe partaking and encouraging those watching to participate in some of the events that are happening this week.
And for those who might be interested in the Community Health Improvement Plan Forum that Tricia mentioned, if you search for that right on our website, you'll see that you need to register today for that forum that runs 10 to noon, according to the website. So thank you very much for joining us today. Next, we'll move on to our second proclamation of the day to proclaim Washington County Crime Victims' Rights Week as April 18th to April 24th, 2021, as we've been doing so yearly, and review the county victims' services. I'll turn it over to District Attorney Kevin Barton and Carrie Shergevek. Sorry, Carrie, I'm not going to do your last name any justice. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, Vice Chair Treese, and Commissioners. And I suffer from the same challenge when I talk to Carrie Sargavakian, I believe. But Carrie, you can correct us. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to speak about this important issue, National Crime Victim Rights Awareness Week. And in listening to the previous proclamation, I could not think of a better proclamation to be paired with, because when I hear about public health, I think about community health as well. And when we talk about our victims and survivors of crime, making sure that we meet all of their needs is so important, I believe, for our community's health and well-being. Of course, I'm your Washington County District Attorney, but I'm not here alone. I'd like to give a moment for Carrie to introduce herself and then to recognize others who are attending virtually or watching virtually. So Carrie.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you all for having us this morning. That was very close. It's Sargavakian, so actually pretty phonetic, just a little daunting because it's so long. So I'm the program coordinator for the Victim Assistance Program here in the DA's office. And I know that we do also have joining us from Hillsborough Police Department, Leslie Smith, who oversees their victim assistance and DV program as well. And I have invited other advocates and members of the team to participate, and I'm not sure, I don't know that I can see everyone who's on here, so it'll be more of just a virtual shout out to the entire victim assistance team. We have 10 advocates that work here in the office, 3 restitution specialists, and 2 legal specialists and admin staff, as well as a volunteer coordinator. So we are a team of 17 who all have just worked very, very hard over the past year under challenging circumstances with COVID to meet the needs of victims and survivors. So it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Carrie. And also I'd like to recognize Under Sheriff Cook and Chief Deputy Roque are here on behalf of the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you.
And so commissioners, thank you again for making this annual recognition so important in your busy schedule, National Crime Victim Rights Awareness Week. Every month, every April, when we recognize this week, we also have 2 other events happening this month that center on crime victims and survivors. And I wanted to just briefly mention those, which are Child Abuse Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Victim Awareness Month. And if you've had a chance to either drive or walk by the courthouse, you might see that there are blue pinwheels planted in front of the courthouse lawn. We do that annually here, and it's actually happening throughout the nation and throughout Washington County to raise awareness for Child Abuse Awareness Month. So I wanted to point that out to you as well. I'm going to stop talking here now, and we have a video that's only about 2.5 minutes long that we'd like to play, and then I think then after that it would be appropriate to move into the proclamation. Of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that any commissioners might have, but if we can play the video now, that would be great.
We are now more than a year into the pandemic. While almost everything about our lives has changed, one thing has remained constant: our commitment to protecting crime victims.
In honor of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, we want you to know that law enforcement and community groups across Washington County are dedicated to supporting victims, building trust, and engaging with our communities.
The Washington County Sheriff's Office,
Beaverton Police Department,
Hillsborough Police Department, Family Justice Center of Washington County,
Sexual Assault Resource Center,
Domestic Violence Resource Center,
and the Washington County District Attorney's Office, along with law enforcement from across the community, are all committed to informing victims of their rights, ushering them through the legal process and holding offenders accountable.
In 2020, we served 9,077 victims.
3,379 victims.
4,560 victims. 1,466 victims.
12,336 crisis services provided.
1,491 people impacted by sexual violence, and 5,000 students supported through our community education program.
And 13,137 victims served, each with a story to tell. We work hard every day to ensure that these men, women, and children have a voice, and that they have been heard, and that they are free to participate in the degree that they are comfortable in the criminal justice process.
Across the county, efforts have also been made to increase services and materials available in multiple languages, including Spanish, to meet the needs of our diverse community. And we are committed to increasing support and resources to communities impacted by inequity.
April is also Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The Sexual Assault Resource Center of Washington County is available to support anyone who is impacted by sexual violence via our 24-hour support line and crisis response, counseling services, case management, and more.
We have several virtual events planned throughout the month. Please visit these pages to learn more. Together, we can send a clear message to crime victims that they are not alone.
So in conclusion, thank you, commissioners, for your support for crime victims and survivors, and for all of those who work for crime victims and survivors throughout Washington County. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, DA Barton. And I'll now read the proclamation for you, commissioners. Proclamation, Board of Commissioners for Washington County, National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 18th through April 24th, 2021. Whereas the victim rights movement began over 30 years ago with the goal of improving the experience of crime victims in the justice system, and whereas an important aspect of victims' rights movement is the enactment of laws that protect victims, and to that end, Congress has passed the Victims of Crime Act. All states have passed victims' rights legislation, and the majority of states, including Oregon, have amended their constitutions to address victims' rights. And whereas crime impacts everyone, but often has a disproportionate impact on some members of our community, include those who may be financially vulnerable or may identify as being members of communities and groups impacted by inequity. And whereas the rights of crime victims are best protected when all participants in the criminal justice process, not only the victims, are appropriately educated about victims' rights and about the increased barriers created by inequity. Whereas in Washington County, a strong collaboration of government agencies and nonprofit organizations work tirelessly to protect and advocate for crime victims in culturally competent manner that seek to promote rehabilitation, healing, and the principles of restorative justice, and to ensure resiliency for all of our communities and victim responders. Whereas we are determined to respond to crime and violence by helping victims not only find support, recovery, and justice, but also a sense of hope for their future and the tools to rebuild their lives. And whereas Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that accessible, trauma-informed, and culturally responsive services are offered to all victims of crime, and particularly with an increased hardship COVID-19, we are committed to showing up for victims and their families, providing them with essential resources they need to heal and thrive. Now, therefore, be resolved on the 6th day of April 2021, the Washington County Board of Commissioners proclaims the week of April 18th through April 24th, 2021 to be Washington County Crime Victims' Rights Week, and Washington County reaffirms a commitment to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime, with a focus on meeting the needs of communities and groups impacted by inequity during Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and express our gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim services providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all victims of crime so that they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and peace. Signed by Chair Harrington and Recording Secretary.
What are the wishes of the Board of Commissioners on
Move
this
that we accept the proclamation. Thank you,
Is there a
Kevin.
second? And we have a second as well. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers and Commissioner Willie. All those in favor of adopting today's proclamation, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, DA Barton, and to Ms. Sargavakian for very much for being with us today, and keep up the great work to everyone on the various teams that support our community members. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, the next item on the agenda, the next category is boards and commissions. The first item is regarding Clean Water Services, to appoint members to the Clean Water Services Advisory Commission. Today, we have an item before us to appoint Alan Jesse to the Agriculture 2 position on the Clean Water Services Advisory Commission, also known as CWAC, with a term that expires September 30th of 2023, as well as to appoint Alexander Pham to the District 1 position with a term that will expire September 30th, 2024. What are the wishes of the commission on these appointments? Do we have a motion? We have a motion from Commissioner Fye, and I assume seconded from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, colleagues. Next, we'll move on to the Washington County vacancies on our various boards and commissions. There are 16 different committees where we have positions where we're seeking continued expertise and volunteer time and energy. The committees are as follows: Aging and Veteran Services Advisory Council, the Audit Committee, the Behavioral Health Council, the Board of Property Tax Appeals, the Civil Service Commission, the Columbia Pacific Economic Development District, also referred to as COLPAC, the Farm Board of Review, the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee, the Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board, the North Bethany County Service District for Roads Budget Committee, the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, or Northwest ACT, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Public Health Advisory Council, the Public Safety Coordinating Council, and the Rural Roads Operation and Maintenance Advisory Commission, also referred to as ROMAC. So those are the vacancies, and you can find more information on the Washington County website. We'll have an application review period open for the next 6 weeks through May 18th, 2021, or until we have the right kind of applicants and expertise to fill all the various positions. So that's it for that item. A lot of great work done by those committees. Next, we'll move on to public hearings. We have 9 different public hearings for land use and transportation. Many of them sound similar, but we'll get right to them. And I assume that we have Mr. Stephen Roberts and members of his team. But before we have open up for public hearings, I want to check to see from Mr. Roberts and Mr. Shetler and others, if we will be having a staff report with each of these, or are there any group staff reports, or how should we proceed?
Chair, it'll be a little bit of a hybrid. So we know we have a lot of items to go through. So there are some items that'll have a very brief individual staff report for one particular hearing. There are a few items under the annexations where we'll be able to do a combined staff report for 2 or 3 of those items together. And then just a reminder that you do need to take individual votes on each of the items. So we're doing our best to try to move through as quickly as we can.
No worries. So I'll call each one and then I'll turn it over to you and you'll let me know if they're combined staff reports. Great. So the first item is to legalize Northwest Pengraz Road as County Road 3329.
Great. And so Stacy Shetler, our county engineer, will give a brief staff report on this item.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. For the record, I'm Stacy Shetler, County Engineer with the Department of Land Use and Transportation. Before you today is the matter of legalizing Pengraz Road, County Road 3329. Pond Gratz Road runs between Buxton and Manning, north of US Highway 26. It connects Fisher Road and Peel Road. The road is owned and maintained by Washington County, and there's uncertainty as to the location of the portion of the legal roadway. This uncertainty was realized in preparation for a paving maintenance project on Pond Gratz Road. Research and analysis of the record documents, along with survey field work, concludes that a portion of the legal right-of-way cannot be accurately surveyed, and that a portion of the record county road notes do not conform to the traveled roadway. Pond Gratz Road was originally established as a county road in the year 1889, and based upon maintenance records, survey records, fences, and other features in the area, this road has been traveled in its current location for over 100 years. Oregon Revised Statute provides that the county governing body may initiate proceedings to legalize a county road if the location of the road cannot be accurately determined due to either numerous alterations of the road, a defective survey of the road or adjacent property, or if the road has traveled and used for 10 years or more, does not conform to the location of the road as described in the county records. This roadway meets the criteria for legalization. There are no permanent structures that predate the traveled alignment in the road or of the road in the proposed right-of-way. The adjacent property owners were notified per statute, and to our knowledge, there is no opposition to the legalization. One resident did reach out to staff before this hearing and was concerned that this legalization was a precursor to a larger capital project that would widen the road and increase traffic. Staff communicated that there is not a planned capital project identified for this road at this time, and that this legalization is cleanup and clarification of survey records. Questions about the paving maintenance were referred to the project manager. Based on the foregoing facts, staff requests your board first conduct the public hearing, and then second approve the resolution and order. This concludes the staff report.
Were there any questions from board members? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Board Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution and order legalizing Northwest Pond Gratz Road as the county road.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Willie. Thank you, Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you. We'll move on to our next public hearing to consider the annexation of 2 tax lots and right-of-way on Southwest Brockman Road, totaling approximately 16 acres to the Clean Water Services District. Staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Robb will give us a brief staff report. This is a single standalone action on this item.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Thank you. Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Brian Robb, Associate Planner with Land Use and Transportation. In an effort to reduce redundancy, I'd like to state up front that if there's any public testimony for any of the hearings today, that I'll need to read a brief statement into the record. Case file number 20-10 is a request by David Weekly Homes to annex 2 tax lots and right-of-way on Southwest Brookman Road, totaling approximately 16 acres into the Clean Water Services District. Staff reviewed the application and found that the request complies with the applicable substantive criteria. Based on the facts and findings in the March 17th staff report, staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution in order approving this annexation, with the approval becoming effective immediately. And with that, I'll conclude my staff report and can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Robb. Are there any questions from commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open a public hearing. Mr. Moss, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not for this item, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution and order approving the annexation, with the approval becoming effective immediately, and authorize the chair to sign the resolution and order for Service District Annexation 20-10?
So move.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Treese. All those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye or hands thumbs up. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to consider the annexation of 6 tax lots and right-of-way totaling approximately 6 acres to the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District 21-001. Staff report, please.
Case file number 21-1 is a request by Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec District on behalf of the property owners to annex 6 tax lots and right-of-way throughout the county totaling approximately 6 acres into the Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec District. Staff reviewed the application and found that the request complies with applicable criteria. Based on the facts and findings in the March 17th staff report, staff recommends that the board approve the resolution and order approving this annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately. And with that, I'll conclude my staff report and can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Robb. Are there any questions from any commission members? Seeing none, I'll open a public hearing. Mr. Moss, do we have anyone signed up to testify?
We do not on this item, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll close today's public hearing. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution in order approving the annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately and authorizing the chair to sign the resolution in order for Service District Annexation 21-1? Motion from Commissioner Rogers. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, colleagues. Moving on to the next item, consider the annexation of a portion of 1 tax lot totaling approximately 0.4 acres to the Clean Water Services District 21-2. Staff report, please.
Case file number 21-2 is a request by Tigard Tualatin School District to annex a portion of 1 tax lot totaling 0.4 acres into the Clean Water Services District. Staff reviewed the application and found that the request complies with the applicable substantive criteria. Based on the facts and findings in the March 17th staff report, staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution in order approving this annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately. With that, I'll conclude my staff report and can answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Robb?
I have one question. I'm a little confused about the portion. Why is that?
The school district, I believe, has an option on that portion of the property to install the River Terrace Boulevard to access the school once it's built, and they need that that portion of the property annexed prior to any construction of the Clean Water Services line that would need to serve the school.
Just out of curiosity, where's that at? I don't see it on the material. Maybe I missed the exact area.
Commissioner, there's a map in the staff report packet toward the end of the packet. It's in the River Terrace area, north of Beat Bend Road and a little bit east of Roy Rogers Road.
Okay.
There's a school site plan down there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is. Okay, thank you. I just didn't know why we'd pick only a portion of it, but I understand.
Yep.
No, it was a good question. I'm glad you asked. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Moss, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not on this item, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that, I'll close the public hearing. My knuckles were getting tired.
Move to approve. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, with a motion to adopt the resolution and order approving the annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately and authorizing the chair to sign the resolution and order for Service District Annexation 21-2. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Commissioner Treese? Great. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, colleagues. Next, we'll move on to item 5E, to consider the annexation of 3 tax lots and right-of-way on Southwest Shoals Ferry Road, totaling approximately 10 acres to the Clean Water Services District 21-03. Is there a staff report, please?
This one is actually combined with 21-004. Combine the hearings here. Case file numbers 21-3 and 21-4 are requests by Wishcamper Development to annex 3 tax lots and right-of-way, totaling approximately 10 acres into the Clean Water Services District and the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District. Staff reviewed the application and found that the requests comply with the applicable criteria. Based on the facts and findings in the March 17th staff report, staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution and orders approving these annexations, with the approvals becoming effective immediately. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? I have a question for Mr. Rapplier. I just want to make sure there was an indication earlier that there would be separate public hearings and separate motions, but then it was just indicated combined. I know we got a combined staff report, but.
And you can also have the combined hearings as well, but you do need the separate motions.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So any other commissioner questions? Seeing none, I'm going to open a public hearing regarding the annexation of these 3 tax lots, approximately 10 acres to Clean Water Services District and the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District. Mr. Moss, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not have anyone signed up for either of these items, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. With that, I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution in order and approving the annexation, with the approval becoming effective immediately for the Clean Water Services District item, and authorize the chair to sign the resolution in order for Service District Annexation 21-3?
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Treese. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Fye. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, colleagues. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, do we have a motion? We've already done the public hearing for item 5F. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution in order approving the annexation, with the approval becoming effective immediately, and authorizing the chair to sign the resolution in order for Service District Annexation 21-04? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers and a second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. We are now on item 5G, to consider the annexation of 4 tax lots on Northwest Laidlaw Road, totaling approximately 9 acres, to the Clean Water Services District 21-05. Staff report, please.
Yes, and I'll combine 21-5 through 21-7 into one. Case file numbers 21-5, 21-6, and 21-7 are requests by Noise Development to annex 4 tax lots and right-of-way totaling approximately 9 acres into the Clean Water Services District, the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, and the Tualatin Valley Water District. Staff reviewed the application and found that the requests comply with the applicable substantive criteria. Based on the facts and findings in the March 17th staff report, staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution in order approving these annexations, with the approvals becoming effective immediately. With that, I'll conclude my staff report and can answer any questions you may have.
Do commissioners have any questions on 21-05, 6, or 7? Seeing none, then I'll move on to the public hearings. This will be a combined public hearing on items 21-05, 06, and 07 for Clean Water Services, Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, and Tualatin Valley Water District, regarding the annexation of 4 tax lots and right-of-way on Northwest Laidlaw Road. totaling approximately 9 acres. I hereby open the public hearing. Mr. Moss, is there anyone signed up on these 3 items?
We do not have any testimony, Madam Chair, on these 3 items.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. With that, I'll close today's public hearing, and I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt a resolution and order approving the annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately and authorizing the chair to sign the resolution in order for Service District Annexation 21-05. That's Clean Water Services. Do we have a motion? Motion from Commissioner Rogers. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, colleagues. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt a resolution and order and approving the annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately and authorize the chair to sign the resolution in order for Service District Annexation 21-06. This is for the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District. Is there a motion? Motion from Commissioner Willie. Second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. I need to stop talking so fast. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. I think I'll slow it down. Next, I'd be entertaining a motion to adopt a resolution and order approving the annexation with the approval becoming effective immediately and authorizing the chair to sign the resolution and order for Service District Annexation 21-07. This is for the Tualatin Valley Water District. Is there a motion? Motion from Commissioner Rogers. Is there a second from Commissioner Treese? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Whew. That's it. We made it through all 9 public hearings and action items. Next, we'll move on to the action section of our agenda. Thank you, staff from Land Use and Transportation, for making this process very effective and efficient. Okay, we have 3 items under our action section for today. The first one is on Board of Commissioners committee assignments. I'll be giving the equivalent of a staff report. The Board of Commissioners had a roundtable meeting on January 7th and a second one on March 4th, talking about our interests and potential assignments of the various committees that we serve on. In today's packet, there are 2 tables. The first one is titled Washington County Board of Commissioners Committee Assignments 2021 Survey. This was updated just yesterday for last correction. This lists all of the various committees by each commissioner. The second table is the full slate of committee assignments, and each of these 2 documents reflect the board conversation from our March 4th meeting. The red color used on the second table, the full slate, indicates that there are a few assignments that we have left open, primarily because we don't have the full board bandwidth for that. We had lots of discussion on those 2 different meeting dates that I mentioned, as well as at our work session this morning. A lot of that discussion focused on operationalizing racial equity, including bringing new voices forward in working to improve policy aspects, community engagement, and outcome. We know that racial equity is a key component in our work here in Washington County, as well as across the region, plus with our Washington County transportation work, not only with racial equity, but also reducing poverty and better serving our historically disadvantaged community members and areas. We have had a lot of conversation about our board representation, particularly on the variety of transportation committees. We have multiple transportation committees, including the Metro Joint Policy Advisory Committee, the Washington County Coordinating Committee, the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, the Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation, the Urban Road Maintenance District Advisory Committee, and the Rural Roads Operations and Maintenance Committee, ROMAC. I'd like to suggest before we move to board discussion that we have a motion on the table with regard to adopting the slate, and that we have a motion and a second, and that we then move to board discussion, including considerations of amendments to this proposal, so that we've got clarity on what is on the table, because we do have a long set of recommendations. So is there anyone who would like to make a motion to advance the slate for discussion? We need something for discussion, folks. Okay.
If I could, I'd like to propose that, because we know that the transportation assignments is the one that led all of the conversation so far, would it be possible that we pull the 5 committees, not the rural roads, not the urban roads, but the 5 would be Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, Northwest Act, the TriMet House Bill 2017 Transit Committee, the JPAC, the Region 1 Commission on Transportation, and the Washington County Coordinating Committee. Those 5, we pull those off of this agenda, leaving all of the rest of the boards and commission assignments for an individual item. I would then motion, if that's okay, to approve those assignments, and so we could then come back and have a clear conversation about the remaining 5 transportation committees.
Well,
and that's just my suggestion, but you tell me what you want to do with on this.
Well, it's really just a process consideration, because I fully expect that we'll have a robust discussion here and make some amendments. But I also want to make it clear that the appointment to the Metro Policy Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, JPAC, is my choice. So I would just add that into the base, and that we can then, so you would have a motion for the full slate minus the Region 1 Act, the Northwest Area Committee on Transportation, WCCC, ERMDAC, and ROMAC.
Oh.
As the 5?
No. No, I
Okay,
think
so
Jerry said
list
the two acts, JPAC, House Bill 2017, and WCCC. Those are the 5. The local ones, the both local and rural urban road maintenance districts, he would leave in his list. Did I get that right, Jerry?
Yeah, and the roads, ARMDEC and urban and rural both. Those are applicable to the commissioners in their particular district. So I'd leave that on the approval list. And yeah, the 5 that I would pull off of this list is the Northwest Area on Transportation, TriMet House Bill 2017, JPAC, Region 1 Area, and WCCC. That's the 5.
So Commissioner Willie has made a motion. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I now open the table for board discussion. I would like to make an amendment to that slate and add the Metro Joint Policy Advisory Commission, as that is my appointment, and have that assigned to Commissioner Nafisa Faye, so that we can get it done as part of the slate. Is there a second?
Second. The second has no, on the original motion, I thought that you did that, Jerry. JPAC was removed.
No, he pulled
No, I
JPAC
didn't.
off.
I didn't. I did. I pulled, that's my error.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I can go back and amend my motion to leave JPAC on, and there would only be 4 then that we would be pulling off for future consideration. So I'm sorry, Chair, I messed that up. So
That's why I was suggesting the other way of just put the
Yeah.
slate out there and remove those for further discussion.
Right.
So
Right.
could you please just re-articulate which 4 are removed from your motion?
that would be Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, the Northwest Act. That would be TriMet, House Bill 2017 Transit Committee. That would be Region 1 Commission on Transportation. And that would be the Washington County Coordinating Committee, WCCC.
Thank you. I would also like to point out that there are multiple commissioner districts, 4 in fact, that cover portions of rural Washington County and therefore ROMAC. There are also multiple districts that include urban unincorporated Washington County. 5 of us have those areas for ERMDAC. So no, those appointments don't automatically go to District 2 Commissioner and District 4 Commissioner. That being said, the proposal that I advanced for your consideration has ERMDAC being chaired by Commissioner Pam Treese and ROMAC being chaired by Commissioner Jerry Willey. That's just what I wanted to bring forward. Are there any other commissioner comments with regard to the slates? So the only thing that is not in the motion right now are those 4 different transportation committees. Any other board conversation?
The only comment that I would make in relation to the JPAC is I don't even think it should be on this list. It's truly a chair proposal. I'm not even certain why it's here, honestly, but.
So that we finally have one organized list of all of the committee assignments for commissioners. That's all. 2019 was the first time that we had such an organized list. Then we followed up with this table in 2020 as well. And so it's just an organizational item. Go ahead, Commissioner Willey.
Just for confirmation, I made my first motion, then I amended my first motion. So I think we need a second to my amended motion.
Oh, I thought Commissioner Rogers seconded it earlier.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, now we have a motion and a second. So just to make sure, I wanted to make sure we following protocol here.
Okie dokie. Is there any other board discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye, or raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Now back to the 4 specific transportation committees. I would like to make a motion to appoint Commissioner Nafisa Faye as the chair of the Washington County Coordinating Committee. We talked about this extensively at our March 4th roundtable. So if folks are interested in that further insight, feel free to watch that coverage on YouTube. We did have extensive board conversation about transitioning of that chairmanship over a 6-month time period. So I would like to make a motion that we appoint Commissioner Rogers as our board representative to October 1st, 2021, as we discussed and agreed to on March 4th. And then after that 6-month time period, that it transitions over to Commissioner Faye as chair. So Commissioner Faye would serve as the alternate from our adoption date over to October 1st. That is my Oh, sorry, I can't make that motion
If you want.
without giving up the gavel.
Could I ask
Would
a
anyone else
clarifying-
like to make that motion?
Could I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
I'm not aware that we can make an appointment for the chair of that committee.
Oh.
I think I don't believe that it is the chair, it is the representative that we make the appointment for.
You're right on. If I read what was on my paper in front of me, it would be as the primary BCC rep would be Commissioner Rogers to October 1st of 2021, and then it would transition. Our BCC rep would then transition over to Commissioner Fye. That's what we discussed on March 4th. Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to make that motion as it was included in the packet?
I would prefer that we have just a little bit more of a global conversation about these committees before we get specific, okay? Commissioner Tree sent out an email on Friday that to me reflected a little bit of a conversation that we as a commission, and this is before Nafisa joined us, but that we kind of had this conversation in 2017 or 2019, I'm sorry, about all of our eggs being in one basket, so to speak, on transportation, with Roy always being taking the lead and overseeing all of those positions. And we, at that point in time, this is my sense, we opted not to make any changes in, primarily because 3 of us were new. And so, you know, a lot of change, but there was conversation about that. Then 2020 came around, the pandemic, that pretty well put the kibosh on something as significant as this. So now we roll forward to 21 and we have the conversation kind of resumed. We now have Nafisa on board. And so that's where this conversation and where Pam's email, and I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, Pam, but that's my recollection of the conversations that have preceded these conversations. So with that, I appreciated the email and certainly encourage us to have further conversations about how that would come about, and probably going forward, maybe some policy conversations on how we assign committee and board assignments and those things. So Pam, I see you unmuted, so please jump in there since I was speaking about your email.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. First of all, I'd just like to make a statement that I believe that equity is about the elimination of the concentration of power in certain groups, and it's about the sharing of power as we move forward. The essence behind the email that I sent was to have as many voices as possible at the table. I recognize that that may not be the interpretation by individuals. What I would like to do is at this point say I can rescind the recommendation that we do that prior to these appointments, but I would like to make sure, and I believe that this is what Commissioner Willie was saying, that in the future, we have a more robust process in relationship to the assignments and a process that we all support as we engage in those assignments. I also feel very strongly that this process has it has undermined the trust and the relationships across our board, which I feel very strongly that we need to build and maintain. So I would recommend that as we move forward, we enter into some mediated discussions about these type of issues. So with that said, what I'm saying is I value my board members, my fellow board members, and I want to have a more robust process into the future. I will rescind my recommendation for this assignment, but I'd like to have consideration of the process for our next year.
I'll jump into. Whoops, I don't know where that's coming from. I made my comments during our work session, and I still hold those. I group them a little different than maybe all of you do. I group the ODOT Region 1 and the Northwest Act in the same bucket. Those are state committees, and they have very specific requirements. For instance, on the Northwest Act, we've always had District 4 representative do that because that's predominantly in their district. But I agree with Pam's note about looking at elections. People come and they go. We have interest. We want to build redundancy. And so, for instance, in the Northwest Act, if I were making a recommendation, I would say that Commissioner Willie would be the primary and that Commissioner Treese would be the alternate, so that we have two people on everything. In Region 1 on the state level, as you know, in 2019, you appointed me. That was a 4-year term. I'm the chair of that committee, and I would like to maintain that. On the regional basis, I really feel funny about saying anything about JPAC because that's the chair's pick, but I do think we're missing some linkage, and that's on the TriMet House Bill 217. That is really, in my mind, because I've served on that, linked heavily to JPAC. And it would seem to me that because of the issues surrounding TriMet and transit, that anybody who's doing the JPAC should be doing that 217 bill. And then bring it full circle to WCCC. I've enjoyed serving with those folks. I don't know why we're doing some artificial 6-month thing. Why don't we just do it to the end of the year? We revisit this next year and we're done. So that's my comments.
Well, I think, Roy, if I thought I heard you saying that in regards to Region 1, do we have an alternate in that right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I would say that it's Commissioner Treese, and let me tell you why. She served on that capacity with WEA, and she's retiring. She knows that work and would be perfect in that slot. So, not that anybody's counting. It's counting mind to mind. If you, for instance, had and with the JPAC appointment, I was nervous. Other than the chair has had experience there, and so we've got experience, and that's important. We'd have JPAC, we'd have the chair, we'd have Nafisa, we would have on the TriMet 217. I would recommend that it be Commissioner Fye, simply because I think there's a huge linkage in that. And I would make the chair again, if she's so inclined, the alternate on Region 1. I'm going to give respect. Region 1's only about 3 years old, 4 years old, as you know. That's brand new. We never had a Region 1, so it's all brand new. But in respect to the Northwest Act, very old act, I would say the Commissioner Willie, that's his area for the most part, with Commissioner Treese as being the alternate. I would like to retain the ODOT Region 1 with the Commissioner Treese being the alternate. And on the WCCC, I just think we've elected officers, we've done everything. We're in the 4th month already. Just carry it to the end of the year and then we deal with it. If you were counting, that would be 5 people, each with 2 positions. That's completely even. So anyway, I threw out my idea.
Madam Chair, you are on double mute.
Commissioner Fye, are there any remarks you'd like to share?
I don't know if we have a motion on the table yet, but I think if we're talking about the WCCC and from my understanding of the connection between JPAC with the ramp up in place of 6 months, I like to nominate myself to be on there.
I think that was actually Roy's recommendation, only not in 6 months, but January 1, so that he can roll through the rest of his chair. We'd be requiring WCCC to re-elect a chair October 1 for basically 3 months. And so just for continuity, I think, having thought through this, I realized I was the one that tossed the 6 months out there, but then I have had conversations with the chair regarding moving that recommendation to January 1. And I think that's what I would still support, is the January 1 date, so that Roy can finish up being chair on WCCC. You would be the alternate for the next 8 months.
So I'll chime in here. So I recommended earlier in March a strategic approach to our various committee assignments, specifically in different categories. We had quite a robust conversation on March 4th about that approach, particularly around transportation. Both Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Treese expressed discomfort about the transition time. I feel very strongly that it's time for a new Washington County board representative to WCCC to make sure that we are operationalizing equity in all of the work that is going on already in 2020 here at WCCC. We have a new commissioner who is very close to that topic and brings new voices to the table, which is why I recommended that we change our 2021 board assignment for WCCC. To respect the concern that Commissioner Willie and Treese had about the transition, I agreed to the proposal that Commissioner Willie made to transition the WCCC assignment over 6 months, as opposed to doing it promptly after the next month of the meeting. But if that isn't of interest, then I'm interested in making it happen sooner, not later. WCCC has a vice chair. The WCCC members know how to work effectively as a group. So from their standpoint, there isn't a big concern about having 3 months with a different chair or not. They've been going on for quite some time, and the work is well in hand with great support from our Land Use and Transportation Committee. So I stand by the need to make sure that we have new voices, new representation, and make sure that we redouble our efforts around operationalizing equity in our transportation decision making. I'd also like to go back to some of the things that I heard earlier in kicking off the transportation specific items. Part of what wasn't part of the story covered earlier is that when we looked at our committee assignments in 2019, there were 2 major transportation programs going on. The Southwest Corridor transportation work that Commissioner Rogers was involved with, and there is the tie there with WCCC. That has now come to its major milestone and is on hold. The Get Moving 2020 program, a regional program, was also very significant and active, and Metro President Lynn Peterson asked Commissioner Treese, then a brand new commissioner, to co-chair that committee along with Multnomah County Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson. And with our land use and transportation help, Commissioner Treese did bring the various project milestones back to us for our board discussion and input. In terms of having a robust conversation about our committee assignments, I look forward to having a board conversation about what characterizes a robust process, because I laid out for you multiple roundtable conversations and did not hear any proposals to do anything differently. So certainly hindsight is 2020, but to say that we've not had a robust process is a little puzzling. So I look forward to hearing from my colleagues in our public conversations about what I think we're doing it, following Oregon public meeting laws. I stand by my commitment to racial equity and making sure that we have new voices and more voices in our work on transportation. And as such, I support the motion to appoint Commissioner Nafisa Faye as the board representative to the Washington County Coordinating Committee. And if my colleagues are saying that the 6-month timeframe that we discussed, March 6th, is not something that they are comfortable with, then I am very pleased if Commissioner Faye's motion goes to assign her as the Washington County Coordinating Committee representative, Board of County Commissioners representative, starting in the month of May.
I'll make a comment. Thank you for your comments. We keep making this a racial issue, and that's not anything that it is. And I said that during work session. I'll say it again. This board has always been committed to equity. It's always been committed to the thing. That keeps being said it's a racial issue. To me, that's insulting, and it's not true. Also, we have to understand that we're one vote on WCCC. We're not in the majority at all. And so those cities, to say that they're not also looking at the equity issue is completely false. It's a false narrative. So, Chair, I appreciate what you're saying. I understand that you think you've done the job. This has caused a lot of fractures, and we need to deal with those fractures at some point. And we're not getting any
Commissioner
closer.
Rogers, I'll take a bit of issue with what you're summarizing.
Please do.
Because I keep saying operationalizing racial equity. We know that has changed. We are operationalizing racial equity differently in 2020 and 2021 than we did in prior years. And part of that is bringing more voices, newer voices to the table. That's what I've been advocating for. I covered it March 4th. I've mentioned it again here today. It is not about the racial makeup of us as individuals. It is about operationalizing racial equity in what we do.
Thank you for your clarification. But again, words aren't that effective. It's actions. And what I see you doing is something entirely different than that. And so we can talk about this all day if we want, but that's really not the issue here. The issue is trying to make equity in terms of people, redundancy, making certain that we transfer our relationships. We've got long relationships, and we're trying to make those effective, ongoing, and you're not valuing that. And so, okay, you don't value that. We vote, we do what we want. We're not going to get any further as a board effectively working under an administration that's going to do this. It is what it is. I'm the only one honest enough sometimes to tell you what's going on. So,
well, I don't agree with the statement that I don't value relationships. I've not said that. I've not taken actions with regard to that. Rather, what I am saying is I'm not satisfied with the status quo of how the Washington County Board of Commissioners has been moving to support racial equity, right? I'm committed to making sure that we operationalize racial equity as we've outlined in our equity resolution of February of 2020 and operationalize it all through our future work. So Commissioner Fye, I believe you made a motion. Would you like to repeat your motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate myself for the WCCC with the ramp up with the 6 months.
And I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye. Aye. And Commissioner Fye as well. All those opposed, say aye or raise your hand. Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Willie.
I'd like to make the comment that I will vote in favor because I don't think that 3 months is worth the fracture that is happening to our board.
And I'd like to suggest the opposite side of that. I don't have a problem at all with this. I guess I'd like to make a couple of comments, and I don't know where we are on this vote. So it sounds to me like it went 3-2. Responding to Commissioner Treese being assigned to the Get Moving 2020, she brought years of transportation experience to that table. That's the reason why she got asked to co-chair that. Currently, we've gone through some of the things as mentioned by the chair that we were dealing with in 19 and 20. Currently, we're dealing with transportation earmarks where we have to be deciding projects region-wide. The Northwest Act is going through that same thing this week. Still, these are critical issues that require an understanding of the system and an understanding of the people around the table. So these are critical things, and all I'm trying to do is say we need to have, as Commissioner Treese said, a succession plan, and we also need to make sure that we have good transitions. We have had Commissioner Rogers in these positions for decades, and he's done a good job. And I don't see why there should be a rush to remove him, quite frankly. My preference would have been that I would prefer not to vote on these items individually. I think we should move on a motion to approve them as a package, but obviously that has gotten broken up. So it's not that there's a 3 month is an issue that has two sides to it. It's 3 months is, I mean, it's either 3 months or it's not 3 months. And so I don't really care one way or another. I just felt like we could eliminate the additional work that the WCCC people are going to have to do because we have decided that 6 months versus 8 months. And so to me, that's the reason why I said no to it. But other than that, I completely support Commissioner Fye to certainly start attending the WCCC, and at the appropriate time, move into the primary position.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. I do agree with your comment that Pam Treese brought years of experience in transportation, as she was a new commissioner in 2019, and that transportation expertise also enticed Council President Peterson to appoint her as the co-chair for Get Moving 2020. But through the course of our discussions on committee assignments, much has been said about people being new commissioners and what they can or can't do, and what their prior expertise did or did not accomplish, which is why I noted that she was provided that leadership position as of being a new commissioner. It was not a slight, and I'm sorry if that came across in any way, shape, or form. So we did have a motion and a second and a vote of 3-2 to appoint Commissioner Fye as the Washington County Board of Commissioners representative to the Washington County Coordinating Committee effective October 1st of 2021. That leaves on the table the appointments for the Region 1 Act, the Northwest Act, and the TriMet HB 2017 Transit Committee. There were some comments made earlier about those committees and assignments. Commissioner Treese continues to serve on the Region 1 Act as the business representative, given her outside employment as the executive director of the Westside Economic Alliance and as the business representative to the Region 1 Act. So I, as a board member here, am not comfortable with an alternate assignment effective in 2021 until she is no longer employed as the executive director of the Westside Economic Alliance, because I see it as a conflict of interest. You can't wear two hats serving in a role on a committee. That's why I've been so careful and respectful as her role on multiple boards as in her capacity as the WEA executive director is clarified.
I'd like to comment on that, please.
I think she does a really good job in that capacity. If you wouldn't mind just letting me finish. Also, we've not had alternates to our to the appointments that for the acts for Region 1 or for the Northwest Act or for the TriMet HB 2017 Transit Committee. So I don't really see having alternates as a big deal there, as opposed to just setting up the primaries. From my standpoint, if Commissioner Rogers is interested in continuing on the Region 1 Act, so be it. That's fine. You know, that is where through the discussion and the composition of the Region 1 Act and clarifying, in my mind, the role of that advising ODOT, if he would like to continue on with that. I'm actually supportive if someone wants to make a motion just to appoint him without any transition. I think that would be fine, along with Commissioner Willie to the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation. We heard here today that Commissioner Rogers believes that the TriMet HB 2017 Transit Committee should follow the JPACT assignment. Fine. If that's his preference, we can consider that as well. So those are some comments that I had based upon what I heard. Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, and I apologize for interrupting you.
Okay.
While I appreciate the confidence that Commissioner Rogers expressed in me as alternate, I want to make it clear that I don't have a retirement date. from WA at this point. So that puts me in an awkward position. And like I said, I appreciate the confidence, but I don't know that I don't know when that is going to be. And it could be as late as the end of the year. So I just want to make that clear. But secondarily, I want to point out that as per the Region 1 Act bylaws, there are positions on the Region 1 Act that have alternates, and there are positions that don't. My position as a business representative does not have an alternate, but the elected individuals there is a position for an alternate there, just for the record. And Commissioner Rogers, is that your understanding as well? Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a motion then.
Can I ask my question first? Due to the internet, my audio wasn't coming through clearly. Was I correct in hearing that you were saying that for the business seat to the Region 1 Act, well, actually, could you just repeat what you said about the alternate positions?
So there are various seats, as you all know, to the Region 1 Act. In my particular seat through Westside Economic Alliance, I do not have an alternate. So somebody cannot sit in my seat and cast a vote for me. I believe it's the electeds, and I'm not certain who else does have the opportunity to have, they do have the opportunity to have alternates. So I just wanted to clarify that that piece as per the bylaws for the Region 1 Act.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Willie, for letting me get my question asked. You wanted to make a motion?
Well, if I heard you correctly and others, I'm going to move that Commissioner Rogers be our primary representative on the Region 1 Act, that I be the primary on the Northwest Act, that Commissioner Fye be the representative on the TriMet HB 2017. And that's all we have left.
Yes, sir. There's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second that. Or Commissioner Fye can, either one. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to appoint Commissioner Rogers as the board rep to the Region 1 Act, Commissioner Willie is the board rep to the Northwest Act, and Commissioner Fye to the TriMet HB 2017 committee. Vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So that means that in our table, the only thing that changes is the TriMet HB 2017 Transit Committee would move under Commissioner Fye. The WCCC timeframe would change, and we've not done any alternate to the Region 1 Act. Okay. Is there any other discussion on any of the other assignments, including potentially on the ones that are unassigned? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the next action items that are on our agenda. The next one is item 6B, to approve the resolution and order adopting supportive housing services local implementation plan.
I do not have audio.
We can hear you,
But we
Comey.
hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, it's good afternoon, Chair Harrington and commissioners. I know it's a long morning, so I'll be very brief. Before I introduce my colleagues, Josh and Jess, it's just a pleasure for us to come in front of you with our LIP local implementation plan. As you know, the plan has been a major body of work for our team, and we are preparing for implementation. The housing staff are very proud of the final document. It represents hours and hours of community engagement and work with our expert service provider and housing partners. To be clear, the plan is only the first step. This is a very major program endeavor, and we have many big steps ahead. We actually need to build, implement, and improve the supportive housing services program. And this will be done in full partnership with our community. We are grateful for your leadership, all of you, and we will continue to seek your guidance and direction throughout the program implementation. Now I turn it over to Josh Christ, Assistant Director, and Jess Larson, Senior Program Manager.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Board of Commissioners. I'm Josh Kreitz, for the record, Assistant Director of the Housing Department. Next slide, please. I just want to echo what Comey said. This is a really exciting moment for Washington County. There's been a lot of work done on this, a lot of community involvement. So this is a very exciting moment, I think, for our county and all the work that's been put into this. Today, we're going to be going over an overview of the LIP drafting process and advisory board, the public comment and final draft changes, next steps for plan adoption, program implementation, and then our board vote. Next slide, please. So I just want to reorient us to the LIP drafting and approval process. It's been a really busy last 3 months, and we appreciate the board's involvement in this. You'll see today, here we are, April 6th. And we're hoping for your board's approval on this plan after you get a full briefing. And then we would be taking this to the Metro Regional Oversight Committee towards the end of the month and eventually moving into our implementation. Next slide, please. So we have done this in full partnership with just an amazing community buy-in and community process. So what you're seeing on your screen right now are the names of members who've been involved in this very inclusive process and who've really been so crucial in our ability to bring this LIP draft versions back to you, and finally this final LIP version. So we just want to thank all of the committee members who spend so much time with us, hours and their own personal time outside of the meeting. So we can't thank you enough, and it's really been so informed by our community. Next slide. And within that, the members who joined us, let's take a look at the organizations who are represented. Again, I'm not going to go through a name. This is in your packet and you can look through, but it just gives a really good view right here of all the different organizations that were represented and who really helped drive and inform the creation of this framework document that's going to be so important as we move forward over the course of the next several months. So again, to all the organizations and all the individuals who spend so much time with us, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll ask us to go to the next slide. On the Local Implementation Advisory Committee, the scope of work, if we want to just take a moment and pause and think about all of the work that's been put into this since August of last year to March of right now, 75 committee members, 42 organizations represented, 16 meetings, 37 hours of committee work. That is just an immense amount of work and buy-in, and that shows how interested the community is in this and how engaged they've been in this. So again, just great buy-in and great LIP advisory committee representation. Next slide, please. It was interesting. We received so many different so much feedback and comments and just so many great ideas. So we put together this just this little imprint, and I think it kind of shows a lot of the words and the feelings and the comments and the feedback that we got. And a lot of things are really interesting. I won't call out everything in here, but I think you see racial equity called out, accountability called out, partnership, local implementation plan, trust, expectations. And so these are just a little bit of a pause moment as we've gone through this process, just to say, this is what we've been hearing as we've been working with our community for really since last summer, right? So again, we appreciate that. Next slide, please. I'm going to ask Clerk Moss if he can find Rachel Duke and Maria Rubio from Centro Cultural and Rachel Duke from Community Partners for Affordable Housing. They've been important partners for us, and we'd just like to have them take a few minutes to talk about their experience in their own words. And so I'll ask Clerk Moss if Rachel Duke is available for her to potentially go first. I see Rachel there, so.
Yes, Josh, they are both on. They just need to unmute themselves and they will be able to communicate.
Great. Good afternoon, good early afternoon, Board of Commissioners and staff. It's so lovely to be asked to be here today. I wanted to share that SEPA has been engaged with this project through initial conversations with Metro on the need for supportive housing dollars, actually before the levy was even on the ballot. Our plan is to continue to be engaged as resources are implemented and operationalized. We're really, really excited to be part of a regional approach that can respond to the needs of people experiencing homelessness with supportive housing. And as someone who's been involved in these kinds of issues for about 3 decades, this feels like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to me. Really cannot overstate that. The local implementation plan is a strong framework. It will guide staff at Washington County and the community partners who are involved like us through implementation to make sure that we're doing the best we can for the community that we're serving and for the voters who approve the levy. And definitely, as you saw on the slide, multiple agencies have been part of this conversation, and there's been a real chance for agencies to participate in developing an equitable and impactful system of care. So just say thank you very much for including Community Partners for Affordable Housing in this planning work. We look forward to the next 10 years to be actually helping with delivering what it is that we're trying to approve today. We're super excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Maria, please.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners Fye, Rogers, Treese, and Willie. I am pleased to be here this morning to support the adoption of the Supportive Housing Services Local Implementation Plan. My organization has been involved in various phases of this work from the beginning, as Rachel mentioned as well. And it's so exciting to see how quickly and thoughtfully and thoroughly Washington County staff has moved this work to reach this point in time. I want to thank you for engaging so many community-based organizations to provide input. And thank you to Metro and Here Together Oregon for their work on the measure. Who knew that this funding would become available just in time during the pandemic when we are actually entering recovery mode? And also when people without housing are most in need, not only of a physical space to live in, but also of social, emotional, and mental health support, and support from the ravages of one of the hardest times in our history. As an essential services organization, Centro, we saw firsthand the difficulty of helping clients to stabilize when they didn't have a place to live. And although we can never truly know what they experienced or how the working poor coped, thanks to this program, there is hope. My hope is that we implement this program, that we maintain an open mind, that we will be inclusive of all areas and communities, that we will be transparent in our planning, and that we will be willing to change existing systems when necessary. Lastly, my hope is that we continue to center equity in our decision-making as we collaborate together to provide what our most vulnerable Washington County residents need. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you so much, Maria and Rachel. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jess Larson now, if you can advance the slide to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Ms. Rubio and Ms. Duke. Thank you, Commissioners, Board Chair Harrington. It's a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. My responsibility with you in this brief staff presentation is to just bring you a quick update on what has changed since our last briefing with you in the LIP as the draft has been developed over this wonderful process with our advisory body and through public comment. So this slide here references the sort of overarching themes we've received through that public comment and LIP advisory process since we last met with you and have continued to improve upon the draft document. So we heard that it was important to understand the difference between what our current investments are in the supportive housing services that we provide, or the homeless services that we provide, and how those investments will change with the planned investments through this new program. We also heard over and over again about the importance of behavioral health needs to being successful in achieving the outcomes and the well-being for our community intended through this program. We also heard about the importance of ongoing accountability and inclusivity through our advisory structures. And then as from the very beginning, we've continued to hear just continued themes that are embedded throughout the plan and embedded throughout the measure, but we think it's important to never let them go and continue to rise them up. So they are here on this list again for you around the importance of culturally specific services that are provided in our expanded network of care, the importance of ensuring access through our coordinated entry and other systems that is truly equitable and reaches those who are not being served currently. The importance of balancing and understanding the nature of the difference between the urban needs in our county and the rural needs in our county, and planning for both through this program. And then the importance of what it means to provide ongoing support. That is the nature of this program, is the nature of the funding that is being created through this measure to provide those year-over-year ongoing rent assistance and community-based service supports to individuals. And it continues to resonate in the needs of our community and is, we hope you find, completely embedded in the plan throughout. So those are the quick themes that we've heard from our public comment period, and I'm going to progress to the next slide to describe how those themes have been incorporated into the final draft that is before you today. So next, yes, thank you, this slide. So first and foremost, you'll find a new section added in the table of contents, and also the section described on page 20 of the plan. This is a commitment to behavioral health investments in housing and homeless services to improve the services for people experiencing housing instability and homelessness specific to behavioral health needs. So these services will be delivered through our shelters and drop-in centers and other housing programs where we can embed behavioral health care and behavioral health community-based workers to serve the needs of people experiencing homelessness and housing stability. This work must be done in a client-centered, trauma-informed, and housing-first approach. And we'll rely on peer support specialists and other culturally specific organizations to help provide these augmented and improved behavioral health services. And it's important to note, and the new section in the plan describes that the intention here is not to supplant existing investments and Medicaid programs in the behavioral health system, but to expand, to improve upon those services to specifically meet the needs of people experiencing housing stability. So that is one new and significant change that was incorporated into the final draft based on the feedback we received. The second significant change on the next slide, please, is a new chart you will find on page 27. We're not going to go through these details here. It was intentionally kept in very small font because none of this information is new. It's just compiled here for clarity and transparency because this was feedback we received from community partners about wanting to understand the difference between what we're doing now and what we plan to do with this measure and the impacts that that's going to create in our system, how the funds will be both delivering different kinds of services and also a wholly new scale of capacity. So you can see that in the totals reflected on the bottom line. And you can also see that one of the significant changes, or two rather, there's a whole new kind of services that we can provide with the supportive housing services programs that aren't made possible by our existing continuum of care investments because of the nature of the limitations through those federal funding, through those federally funded programs. So expanding outreach and navigation and those wraparound supports to help ensure long-term housing stability. We don't reflect that in our current investments now, and that'll be a significant component of investments to be made. And similarly, system capacity building in our especially culturally specific organizations and emerging organizations who will be service providers. Those are investments that our current funds can't make at this time and will be an important first step of building the program over the next 3 years. And that's why it's reflected in the planned investments. So again, this section doesn't reflect any new data or content in the plan, but it's a compilation of those planned investments compared to our current investments for the sake of transparency and to provide that clarity that was requested from our community. Next slide. The next two slides are about advisory bodies. This component was both of these elements were already in the previous draft that we've brought to the board and we've discussed with the board, but we wanted to take a moment today to remind you and our partners listening in that these are important elements already in the LIP. First, the nature of the Tri-County Advisory Body. This is referenced on page 19. And this structure is called for in the measure itself. So Washington County will be participating in this work with Clackamas and Multnomah counties, as well as Metro, to convene that advisory structure, which will be tasked with the role of directing work that will improve on our outcomes and our programs through coordination of investments and coordination of planning. So this is an important body for ongoing advisement of implementation and also accountability and evaluation of the programs as we implement the program over the next 10 years. And then the next slide speaks to our Washington County Advisory Body. This was also originally in that full draft you reviewed at our last report with the board on page 28. So no changes here, but again, we're bringing it up for attention because of so much feedback we received about the importance of this work. So in addition to a tri-county coordinated advisory body, we're going to convene ongoing advising structures to advise on the implementation of the SHS work. So the wonderful work of the LIP advisory body, while that work has come to a conclusion, the work of advising Washington County staff and the implementation of this program and advising up to the board will continue through future advisory structures still to be developed through ongoing work with our existing advisory structures and colleagues throughout the county. So more to come here, but we just wanted to reference this important component of the plan that's in page 28. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, what you have before you is a full local implementation plan for your consideration. These are the table of contents. So I've just gone over a couple quick elements that are within the plan, but this is the plan in its complete structure, plus an additional roughly 150 pages of exhibits and attachments. But the bulk of the plan exists in the first 30 pages in these separate sections, which we've discussed at length, so I'm not going to go into today, but I just wanted to come back to this is the plan in its complete structure and what the LIP represents for us as the guiding framework for implementation that sets forth the principles, the priorities, the values, the commitments, and the goals that will guide our implementation as staff as we set into actual implementation of this program. And next slide. Just a quick reminder to what end, what this work is all about. So here, as we described in our previous briefing with you all, is what we're aiming to achieve in just year one with this new significant increase in investment to address our housing instability and homelessness needs in Washington County. We aim to achieve, and it's an ambitious but achievable goal, 500 supportive housing placements in year one, plus an additional 500 households who will be served with other kinds of housing stability services. We also aim to expand our current shelter capacity that does not have any year-round shelter beds with 100 year-round shelter beds, in addition to the winter capacity that we currently sustain. And then, of course, in year one, we expect to have capacity building fully underway towards that culturally specific network of services that we aim to build out over time. But in year one, those early investments to help build that capacity will begin. And then, of course, in year one, as in all years going forward, we will be demonstrating with measurable outcomes how we are advancing equity through this work. All right, and last, just to conclude this very brief staff presentation, after your action today regarding this local implementation plan, these are the immediate next steps to finalize this process with the LIP, but also continue our implementation readiness work to begin the programs anticipated in July. So we are currently penciled in to present the local implementation plan once it is approved by Washington County, by our board. We will be presenting it to the Regional Oversight Committee at Metro, currently scheduled for April 26th. We're also about to begin intergovernmental agreement discussions with Metro and our colleagues in the other two jurisdictions, Multnomah County and Clackamas County. So more work there. And of course, that intergovernmental agreement is necessary to begin programs. It's the mechanism that will release the funds to Washington County. So that will be the next big update we bring to you following this LIP process. And as you know, we are also getting ready to release a request for programmatic qualifications. This will be coming out in the next couple of weeks and be open for a month. It is the opportunity for all of our service provider partners of all kinds, current and future partners, to come forward and demonstrate their interest in becoming qualified suppliers. That's the procurement language, but being eligible partners, essentially, to be implementers with us, service providers for the Supportive Housing Services Program. So that work will be getting underway as well, and we will keep you posted as that body of work proceeds. And then finally, of course, our timeline. We are working towards that July 1st goal date to begin contracts with our partners and services for our community through this new Supportive Housing Services Program. So that is it for our staff presentation for you today, just to finalize the updates those small changes that were made to the final plan, and complete this the information about the LIP advisory process and development process as we've completed it, and bring it back to you for your consideration and vote. So I turn it back to you all. We welcome any questions if you have any, but we'll turn it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
So commissioners, we had a first draft from our staff a couple of weeks ago, and they've had this widespread public comment period and have brought forward to us the comments on that full draft and a final version for our adoption today. Do you have any questions that you have for our staff? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, if we could go back, I think 4 slides back, it's the ongoing advisory bodies. Starts with Tri-County Advisory Body. Just for clarification, your first sentence says to support regional outcomes through programmatic and investment coordination with Clackamas and Washington County. Shouldn't that be Clackamas and Multnomah counties?
I'm so sorry, Commissioner. Absolutely. That is an error on
Okay.
our part.
No. It's and you're probably not ever going to use this slide presentation again, so that's, you know, not important. So if you go back one more slide to the document that you said's got a lot of information, increased investments compared to existing programs. I honestly didn't understand that slide. And I think particularly under the first column of continuum of care. Well, first of all, you have to know that as a bean counter, the columns have to add up, and they don't, okay? So your totals down at the bottom there, okay, so I just ignored that, but they don't. And then the continuum of care under 18 and 19, yep, I get that. That's what we've basically invested in those particular categories. Then you move over to supportive housing services in 21 and 22, and then you say total estimated 21 and 22, and they're different numbers. So is the total estimated amounts in the far right column, that's what we're hoping to invest with this SHS money effective later in 21-22 fiscal year. So am I understanding that? That's how much more money, the difference between those two columns is basically the additional services and the additional money that we're going to provide for that. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, so the far right set of numbers is meant to reflect when we combine our continuum of care investments with our supportive housing services investments. That will be the combined impact. And you're right, the numbers don't add up. And part of the challenge here is we're comparing apples to oranges, or trying to put all this data into one table. And the way the continuum of care requests data and reporting requirements is different than the requirements for the Metro measure. So we can't always add them up. For example, the continuum of care describes households served in shelter and transitional housing, whereas the supportive housing services programs describe number of beds that we're creating, which is not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. And that's part of the challenge of compiling all this data. But nonetheless, we put it together because of the feedback we received.
No, it's a great presentation, and certainly reflects the amount of money that we're going to be investing in these individual pockets. So it accomplishes its task if you didn't have some accountant sitting here looking at that. And so if we could go back just a couple more slides, and I didn't think, let's see, the slide that I'm looking at is, I think it's slide number 9, and it says basically that continued consideration for, and this is under the public comment slide, and it says continued consideration for, and I go to the last one, continued support for ongoing needs. So that was our public comment, was that we needed to continue supporting our ongoing needs, okay? Then we go to the next slide, and it says changes to the final LIP, and it says does not replace or expand the existing behavioral health programs. So to me, that was, those two comments are conflicting. So and again, where I'm going with this is my focus on this. I mean, when you and I met a while back, my focus on this is that we use this money to significantly enhance our mental health capabilities and all of those categories that you identified before. And I'm pretty sure that we're all in agreement that that's what we're going to be doing. So I just want to make sure that I understand when you say does not replace or expand existing behavioral health programs. Am I understanding that correctly or not?
Good question. The intention here with that statement is to be clear that the supportive housing services program is a housing-based program. We're not investing in the resources will not be used to replace existing Medicaid or behavioral health investments made through the other federal funding or state funding programs. and also recognizing that many of those programs aren't currently adequately reaching and serving people who are experiencing housing instability and homelessness. So the supportive housing services investments made to improve and expand behavioral health care will focus on programs that can uniquely meet the needs of people both experiencing behavioral health needs and housing instability at the same time. Because the existing Medicaid and behavioral health systems sometimes are unable to do the two at the same time. So our focus will be where those investments and services can uniquely address the needs of this unique population. That is the intention there. There's sometimes confusion that when we describe investments in behavioral health, it is assumed that that will be dollars sent from the Department of Housing to our colleagues working, investing in the behavioral health programs that they run. And that is not exactly what we intend to describe. It's a new suite of approaches, tools, programs, partners to provide a unique kind of behavioral health care that's currently not available.
And Commissioner Willie, if I may,
Thank you.
One unique position that we're also bringing on is a liaison that's working in behavioral health directly on this program. And so we're really excited to have that position who's going to help ensure that we're connecting the housing and the behavioral health system as we go along in this journey. And we've been working very closely with Health and Human Services and Kristen Burke and Marty Kyle on that. So we're excited about that partnership to ensure we are, hitting all of those different points.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are there any other Board of Commissioner questions?
I don't have a question, but I do want to say it's a remarkable amount of work. It's a huge amount of work. And I really appreciate the leadership that you've all shown, the collaborative work together, and just the amount of hours put together into this document. So congratulations. And I'm really looking forward to those outcomes. That slide just was so powerful to me. So thank you.
So thank you, Commissioner Treese, for kicking us off to comments. Are there any other board comments before we entertain a motion to adopt the supportive housing services local implementation plan? Any other commissioner comments?
I've only been able to participate maybe 2 or 3 committee, but I've been really impressed. Comey and Josh, and just congratulations of all the work you've done. And I've been really impressed of the community support and the community taking ownership of this, that committee, and the amount of people who have attended all those meetings, and commend our staff for all the work that they put in, and giving the community ownership to that project to really drive the suggestions and the goals that came out of that. I'm impressed and continue to support this effort, and hopefully join you in the on the road. I think that wasn't part of it, but Jess and I are going to go and present to the Beaverton City Council, and look forward to joining you that, and hopefully other commissioners will have an opportunity to join with you on different City Council presentations.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye. Commissioner Willie or Commissioner Rogers, did you want to make any comment? Otherwise, I'll go ahead. All right. Well, my comments are, this is an amazing program. It says a lot about our community that in the midst of a global pandemic, with schools closed and businesses closed, and our economy really just dealing with a lot of shock and instability, the voters of Washington County chose to stand together with voters in Clackamas County and Multnomah County to say that helping our neighbors remains a priority. Because of the measure that the voters passed in May of last year, a very tumultuous time with the global pandemic, we have this gift from our community. And these dollars will clearly help the chronically homeless individuals throughout our area, will help them find homes to live in with the needed wraparound services that includes things like rental assistance, job training, behavioral health supports, and other services that will help them return to a thriving life here in Washington County. I appreciate all of the work that has gone into this. You know, it's been quite a year since this measure passed, and quite an extensive program to develop this local implementation plan. I particularly have enjoyed working with and seeing new staff members join the organization to augment the incredible expertise and dedication of our existing Washington County team members. I mean, our existing members were just doing everything they could to continue with the homelessness and affordable housing programs. And then the pandemic came. And now we've added to this supportive housing services program. So I'm really proud of how this team has pulled together, expanded the team, interviewed new folks, and just put in tremendous work to bring in, to invite additional expertise, service providers, individuals, and community members to develop this plan. Just really exemplary. Thank you very much. I think this 188-page document tries to pull together all of that expertise. And I really appreciate everything that has gone into this. I join my colleagues in looking forward to positive outcomes, but the real outcomes aren't going to be just numbers. They're going to be the individuals, our community members that are no longer experiencing chronic homelessness, or also those community members who are at imminent risk of becoming homeless. Those people are people of our community. And I really appreciate that because of the voters' approval, we're able to move forward with this program. So thank you, team. And with that, what are the wishes of the Washington County Board of Commissioners with regard to adopting Washington County Supportive Housing Services Local Implementation Plan? Do we have a motion? A motion from Commissioner Treese with a second from Commissioner Willie. Any last questions or comments? No? All those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Yes, big clap. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, team, and to all those individuals and organizations that helped us get to this point. So that's the second of 3 action items on our agenda today. As announced earlier in our meeting, we took an item off of the consent agenda and have moved it as a 3rd item under the action section of our meeting today. So this is an action. We're going to have a public hearing, but also entertain an action to approve the purchase of the Econo Lodge in an amount to be announced during the public hearing. So we have the public hearing today. The board, well, let me ask, is there a staff report or do you want me to summarize this action item?
Hi, Chair Harrington. This is, for the record, Josh Kreitz, the Assistant Director of the Housing Department. I'm happy to give a quick staff report. Okay, great. So I'm going to give the staff report on behalf of Support Services and Housing today. So just very quickly, we're excited to bring forth the Econo Lodge project to your board for approval to purchase. As you may recall, this facility will serve as Washington County's COVID-19 respite shelter and non-congregate shelter, which is an immense need right now with our concurrent crises around the pandemic, homelessness, and affordable housing. I want to just highlight for your board again that we're working with our partners in the city of Hillsborough and the Oregon Community Foundation to finalize zoning concerns. But if we're able to iron those out, the Oregon Community Foundation would be paying for the majority of this purchase. Staff stand by myself, Comey, and Greg from facilities if your board has any questions or if you wish for us to provide any more detail.
Commissioners, do you have any questions that go along with the information that is in our published packet? Seeing none, do we have a motion to proceed with the, public hearing? I'd like to open a public hearing on this action item. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who's indicated they wish to testify?
We have not received any forms, Madam Chair, but I would like to, since we changed this to it, to announce anyone left on Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to provide any public comment on this item. Let's give you just a moment. I'm not seeing any hands, Madam Chair.
Okay, of the 19 attendees, no one's raised their hand. So with that, I'll close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the board with regard to this action item? Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the Econo Lodge as documented in our published packet? A motion from Commissioner Treese. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Willie. Any comments? No. All those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, colleagues. The next item on our agenda, thank you, staff members,
Thank you,
for
commissioners.
joining us in this meeting. The next item on our agenda is oral communications. This is the second section of our agenda for oral communications. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone wishing to testify?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. We have Addie Smith. Addie, can you hear us? Addie, are you able to unmute?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Can you? Well, I've been on the call since 10:15 and I literally just stepped away for a potty break. Can you give me a second?
Yes, ma'am, we can accommodate you.
I've been sitting here, yes, please. And then we can start, please. I can't believe it. You waited until I had to go to the bathroom.
I'm sorry.
I'll be right back.
Yes, no problem. So we'll pause that for a moment and I'll just make board announcements at this stage while we pause. I'm announcing that our next meetings during the month of April consists of a work session next Tuesday, April 13th, starting at 8:30. The following Tuesday, April 20th, we have a work session at 8:30 in the morning, followed by a board meeting at 10 and then reconvening the work session. We have a board roundtable slated for Thursday, April 22nd. Then our last board meeting set for the month will be Tuesday, April 27th, with a work session at 1 in the afternoon and a board meeting at 6:30 p.m. And then our first meeting for the month of May, which will be a very busy month with budget meetings, will be Tuesday, May 4th, with a work session at 8:30 and a board meeting at 10. And we'll come back to board announcements in a moment.
Addie, are you back with us?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
No worries.
And
Please go ahead.
Mine is going to take 7 minutes and 51 seconds. And if you will just tolerate me, please, I would appreciate your attention on this matter. Hello, my name is Addie Smith. I'm speaking before you today regarding your contract with VigilNet. I hope DA Kevin Barden and Carrie Sargavakian and Leslie Smith from the Hillsborough Police Department are still on the meeting. The county has signed a 2-year contract with a racist business that discriminates against young Black men. Being accused of a crime does not make you guilty. And like I said, without interruption, my public comment will only take 7 minutes and 51 seconds. I appreciate your attention. VigilNet staff treats these young Black men as if they've watched the crime being committed and know they're guilty. VigilNet's Hillsborough staff are bullies. They are unprofessional and lack personal social skills. They lack customer service skills, and I've witnessed it. The VigilNet staff in the Hillsborough office are beyond reproach. I would like to email the board members a few videos and email correspondence. In order for me to establish cause, I have to provide the backstory. The contract with VigilNet must be severed. Set the tone and the example that racism and discrimination on any level will not be tolerated. Please allow me to offer some insight. On the morning of December 14, 2020, a woman lied to Hillsborough police about being attacked by her boyfriend. Prior to lying to the police, that woman was outside her boyfriend's apartment door. She was kicking it, jiggling the door handle, bumping the door with her body, yelling and demanding that he open it. The young man was arrested 2 weeks later based on the lies told by that woman. Washington County District Attorney Kevin Barden has everything at his disposal and still tries to break the law to obtain his convictions. It was a mistake for the citizens of Washington County to elect him. One that many of them, I'm certain, didn't know what they were actually getting. DA Barden is a racist. He's married to a minority woman, which makes this even more disturbing. Kevin Barden, the Washington County Court, including staff and judges, have developed a system. It's a corrupt system that destroys the lives of young Black men. Oftentimes, the system is so well-oiled that the paid defense attorneys and the public defenders are in on the scheme as well. The defense attorneys and public defenders don't tell the judge not to accept the late discovery based on the law. They don't tell the judge it wasn't provided prior to the hearing. They don't object to the introduction of late discovery. They don't even ask to be allowed an opportunity to prepare a proper defense. Kevin Barden and the Washington County DDAs provide fraudulent discovery to the court on the day of the hearing. Oftentimes, this fraudulent discovery looks factual. For example, the thought of domestic violence is awful. Domestic violence is awful and traumatic, but sometimes it is simply untrue. When it's untrue, it should be immediately dealt with. It shouldn't ruin a young man's life. Kevin Moss has my email address. Members of the board, please request it from him or ask him to have me submit the videos and email correspondence. On December 28, 2020, one young Black man in particular was arrested based on fraudulent accusations of domestic violence. I bailed him out. I know him better than anyone. On March 16, 2021, District Attorney Kevin Barden and DDA Amberlynn Howell accused him of violating the terms. Not only did he not attack any woman ever, he did not violate the terms of the bail. This young man was accused of violating an order from staying away from the young woman, although she was outside his door, kicking it and demanding access. His private attorney was provided discovery on March 17, 2021 via email the day after the hearing. On March 16th, the actual day of the hearing, the judge allowed testimony that the defense wasn't prepared to contest. The defense didn't ask the court for time to prepare. The defense didn't offer any objections. The hearing was recorded. Complaints with the commission have already been filed against the judge. Like I've said, a well-oiled machine. The young man was obviously found guilty of violating the terms of his release. Here's where VigilNet comes in. When he went to VigilNet on March 8th, he was met by staff at the Hillsborough office that had never met him before, but treated him like they saw him commit a crime. I was on FaceTime with him when he encountered Jennifer. She was rude, curt, dismissive, loud, discourteous, and unprofessional. She and the other employee told him to come back on the upcoming Thursday or Friday. The next day, they wrote an email to the court saying that they told the young man, come back the next day. This was a lie. This kind of corruption and intent should not be tolerated. Maybe you can't do anything about Kevin Barton, but you can surely terminate the contract with VigilNet. The staff at VigilNet contacted DA Kevin Barton and DDA Amberlyn Howell. They told the DAs that this young Black man tried to come back to their office on a later date. He did no such thing. He was supposed to receive an ankle monitor that day, March 8th. The staff at VigilNet told him to come back and then lied about it. The emails I can provide will prove what I'm saying here before you. At the March 16th hearing, the judge condemned the young Black man. He condemned him for the fraudulent information provided by DA Kevin Barton's office, the lies told by VigilNet, and the judge also stated that he received emails illegally from Kevin Barton ex parte via the release office. These emails were from the parents of that young man. Because of these emails, that young man's mother was not allowed to testify on his behalf. That judge was extremely impartial and showed tremendous bias. He violated canons of the court. You should be concerned about how many young Black men VigilNet has done this to. How many times have the lies VigilNet been presented to the judge to garner favor? This is all part of the well-oiled machine I've informed you about. Their lies, in addition to the lies and the fraud of DA Kevin Barton and DDA Amberlyn Howell, are destroying the lives of innocent young Black men. Their lies and the lives of the women who aren't actual victims but aggressors are making believing actual victims of domestic violence even more difficult. It's making real survivors all the more terrified to come forward. They don't want to be grouped into a situation with DA Barton and DDA Howell. They'll be deemed untrustworthy. It's time to end the contract with VigilNet. DA Kevin Barton's office and tactics must be investigated. I believe and support victims and survivors, and this includes men, specifically young Black men who've been falsely accused of domestic violence. That number is also in the thousands. All counties in the state of Oregon must terminate their contracts with VigilNet unless destroying the lives of young Black men is the goal. Racism and hate, discrimination, lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Washington County and the state of Oregon as a whole is really disgusting. I'm not satisfied with what I see happening in the schools, with the government, with the law enforcement like the horrible Tigard and Hillsborough police, and with the Washington County Circuit Court and DA Kevin Barton. There is zero accountability. There should also be restitution and financial support for victims who've been falsely accused of domestic violence. And thank you so much for allowing me to say everything I needed to say. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And I will follow up with Clerk Moss with regard to your email address so that you're able to email the files that you indicated to me as the chair of the Washington County Board of Commissioners. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Moss, do we have anyone else signed up to address us during this oral communications section?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So that takes us back to board announcements. I've already announced our future meetings. Are there any other board announcements that commissioners want to share today? Seeing none, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Willie and a second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor of adjourning today's meeting of Tuesday, April 6th, 2021 of the Washington County Board of Commissioners, please vote by saying aye. Aye, or raise your hand. Thank you, colleagues. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Now, we had expected to return to work session at approximately 1 o'clock today. It's now just about 1:15, and the board members have not yet had the opportunity for a lunch break. Would you like to take a full hour, or colleagues, would you be willing to reconvene at 2 p.m.?
Chair Harrington, I just want to announce that I have a hard stop today at 4:30. So I just want everyone to know right now. So thank you.
Would you be willing to reconvene at 2 p.m.?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Fye, Commissioner Rogers? Okay, so why don't we reconvene at 2 o'clock for our work session? Give staff the opportunity for a short lunch break too. Okay, we'll see you back at our work session afternoon link at 2 o'clock. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, everyone.